we buy way more clothes than necessary. And I know from experience, I used to buy so many clothes that for one didn't fit my lifestyle, or they just didn't fit me right, or they were cute and I convinced myself I needed, only for them to end up in the back of my wardrobe for months on end without ever being worn. Women in the UK own between 24 and 35 pairs of shoes. Men own on average 19 pairs of shoes, and we end up with a cluttered home that's just stressing us out. And over the years of decluttering and just trying to become a bit more minimal in my life and my mindset, I have learned that there are certain kinds of clothes that you will always regret buying. Or at least I know that's the case for me. Luxury bags. Luxury bags can cost £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, even way more than that. And it's been said that luxury handbags have become more accessible than they used to be in the past, but also the household debt has gone up a lot as well. So is it that they became more accessible, or is it that we're just buying them on credit cards and then paying them off for years and years after that? It's been said that today's buyers actually have a very low amount of money in savings, and 1 in 4 people who do buy high-end bags actually have a low income. And so it's more so people describing themselves as being adventurous, or YOLO, you only live once, not necessarily that we can actually afford more. The luxury handbag market was actually valued at $27 billion in 2025 and is expected this year in 2026 by the end to reach $28.9 million. So the luxury handbag market is just constantly growing, and it's not necessarily just from people who can afford it, like who maybe have a high income. And a lot of their customers are actually aspirational customers. You buy that handbag and you feel like you have a certain status, or like you look like you're doing well. But if it's a purchase that's been made on a credit card, or if it's something that's going to cause a strain on your finances for the next few months or years down the line, then that's absolutely not worth the purchase. And investment pieces, because it's not just handbags. You can buy so many items for such an expensive price, and I'm not saying it's not worth it. Like sometimes buying something slightly more expensive can be worth it. It can mean it's a higher quality fabric. It might mean that it's going to last you for a longer time, but it's not always an investment piece. And when I buy something nowadays, I try to think, okay, this is not me investing. This is me purchasing an item that I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy for a long time to come. But I'm not buying items in the hope that, oh, in 2 years I'm going to sell this and make my money back or anything like that. Because regardless of how expensive an item is, most likely you will not get your money back. It might be very hard to sell. Maybe no one will have an interest in that item. Maybe it's a very specific kind of trend that will fade away. Maybe it will get ruined in time, or maybe you will sell it, but for a fraction of the cost that it was initially. And so I don't buy things for investment. I buy clothes because I want to wear them. They make me feel good. They maybe fit my lifestyle. I see myself wearing them a lot, and I think they'll be a good addition to my wardrobe. So those are kind of the reasons why I do purchase something versus purchasing something just because it's a good investment for the future. And also dry clean only is something I really try to avoid these days, because I have been a bit naive in the past, I'll be honest. But when I buy a item nowadays, I'll really look at the label and see what it says about the care, because I don't want to have something that's dry clean only. That means on top of the item value, which is usually quite high, if it's a dry clean only item, it's probably a fabric that's a bit more premium, but that also means there's going to be an ongoing monthly payment for that item, or maybe not monthly, depending on the item. Like if it's a coat, maybe you don't need to dry clean it that often, maybe just once a season. But if it's something you wear regularly, like a jumper, then it would require more frequent washes at the dry clean. And that can really add up. So that's something I really try to keep in mind when I'm making a purchase, because that needs to be factored in to the cost of the initial item. Also, when you get items that are slightly off size, I used to go in the shop, I would see an item, I would think, this is such a cute top, so I'm gonna try it on, and the sizes that were available were not the right size. Like they were not my size. They were either way too big or way too tight, and I would eventually convince myself that it's okay, I'm just gonna buy it and I'll make it work somehow. Well, spoiler alert, I didn't make it work. Usually that item would end up in the back of my closet. I would just avoid wearing it for ages because it was too tight or it was too loose, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable. So that's the kind of item that you would absolutely regret buying, and I just know for myself that's the item I'm gonna avoid buying. If it's not in my size, or if it's not in the size that actually fits me, then I do not need to buy it. Then that's a no-no, and it's made such a huge difference to the clothes in my wardrobe and how I feel when I get dressed as well. And the trousers that only go with one look. You know those trousers that you buy that maybe are just a very specific color that just don't go with everything in your wardrobe, or they don't go with a lot of things in your wardrobe. Maybe you need to buy some more items to go with those trousers, or maybe they're like a really interesting pattern, but again, it's not very versatile. Those are the kind of items that I actually avoid buying. I would much rather spend my money on things that are versatile, that go with a lot of things, because it's just a much better use of my money. And I have found that when I did buy things like that, like those really specific trousers or a really colorful pattern top that I wouldn't necessarily wear with a lot of things, I just simply didn't wear it a lot, and I don't feel like that's a good cost per wear for that item, and it's something I'm trying to be more mindful of as well. So when I do buy something, I ideally want that item to have as low of a cost per wear as possible. So the more you wear the item, the cost per wear will go down and down, and that's the goal, right? The goal is to wear the items that we buy. Also, weird cutouts. I learned, and especially now that I'm browsing Vinted a lot more, like when I'm trying to shop for something, when I have something on my wish list, something I want to buy, like this crochet white top, let's say for summer, I will go on Vinted and I will scroll through, and I have really started to notice the patterns of things that not necessarily that I like, but especially the patterns of things that I don't like. So things like weird cutouts or weird shapes. Like I've learned I don't really like a huge balloon sleeve, or I don't really like a cutout that's like weird here, or like a side cut here that maybe shows your bra strap. You know, those kinds of items are items I try to avoid. And this takes me to my next thing, which is the bra rule. So if anything requires a very special bra that I don't own, or that I don't want to buy, like I'm not comfortable buying that, I feel like it would be a big hassle, then I'm just not gonna buy it. So I tend to go for clothes that are just more basic, that actually go with a normal bra, or with a bra that's kind of easy maintenance. So maybe I'll have like a racer back bra so that I can wear one of those racer vests. But other than that, for example, I don't really enjoy a bandeau kind of bra, or wearing no bra. Those kinds of looks are just not something I feel comfortable in right now, and so that's something I avoid wearing. If I see a top and I'm like, oh, this really needs one of those bandeau bras, or otherwise it doesn't look right, then that's an item I'm just gonna avoid, because I'll know I'll absolutely regret purchasing that. And also those really faff clothes, like, you know, the clothes that you put on and you constantly have to readjust or faff around with, that's something that just makes me feel uncomfortable throughout the day to keep doing that. And I'm not saying, like, to some degree you might still like adjust your clothes here and there, but you know, when it's something that's like riding up a lot or riding down a lot, like your leggings or something, and it's really annoying, those are the kind of things that I just don't want to buy anymore, because I know I will absolutely regret that, and I will not wear it a lot because of that. And I just know myself, I'm in a season of life where I really appreciate comfort and just having clothes that fit me right, that like sit on me right, that don't ride up or down, or, you know, yeah, just things that I don't have to faff around with a lot, especially when you've got toddlers or babies and you're carrying them around. You just don't want anything that's too faffy. How many times have I said faff in this video? Also, sweaty fabrics. You know, there are certain kinds of fabrics that either if it's like a really tight top, just certain kinds of leggings, or certain types of fabrics that you put on and they just make you so sweaty, like way more than normal. Certain t-shirts, and I do find sometimes something that's like super tight can be really uncomfortable depending on the fabric. But those are the kinds of items that I just avoid, because I know if I'm feeling like really sweaty and tight and uncomfortable, like that's an item I'm absolutely gonna stash in the back of the drawer and forget about for months, because I just won't enjoy wearing it. And the last minute clothes. You know, when you do online shopping and you go to checkout and either you are tempted by some of their upsells, you know, like they show you, oh, would you like this to go with your outfit, or would you like this item to go with your outfit? I found that those are the kinds of items that I tend to regret, because the idea to buy that item didn't come from me. It didn't come from a need that I have in my wardrobe. It didn't come from, you know, I have this gap I need to fill in my wardrobe. It just came from that website saying, oh, you might like this, and me going, yeah, that's cute. But those are usually the kinds of items that I don't end up wearing a lot, that I regret buying, and it's just pointless to do that. And also when I go to checkout, you know how you're sometimes very close to reaching the free shipping limit? Like, I used to add items to my wardrobe, even if I was like a bit far off from that free shipping, like 10 pounds or 20 pounds off, I would go back and add more random items to my checkout just to reach the free shipping, which now that I think back, it's kind of silly. So that's something I try not to do anymore. I have items that, are on my wish list. This is what I want to purchase. Then that's going to go in my checkout. I'm going to try my best not to be tempted by all of these little things that I could add, but that I will probably regret. Also, clothes that are either too long or too short. So for example, if I'm looking at a skirt that I just know is way too short for my liking, not that there's anything wrong with wearing a short skirt, but I just know for myself, I would not feel comfortable in that. Maybe because I'm a mom and you're, like picking your toddler up and down on the floor with the kids. It's just not something I would feel comfortable in. So if it's too short for your liking, or if it's too long to wear, you're literally like tripping on the clothes, or it's just really uncomfortable to wear again, or you're like dragging on the floor and soaking up all the puddles, that's just not a good look for me. And so I think if it's jeans, trousers, dresses that are too long, unless you actually have a plan to go to the tailor and get them cut to the size that actually fits you right, then that's something I avoid purchasing, because I just know that's not going to get a lot of wear. And also high maintenance items, the ones that just require a very special care, not necessarily dry clean, but like they need special washing conditions, they need to be washed separately. A lot of those high maintenance items are just not in my wardrobe anymore. So I will usually keep things that can go in the wash at a 30-degree wash, like normal one, or if it's something that's like a bit more delicate, like a specific jumper, then I will put it on a delicate wash, or like the wool wash or whatever it is. But other than that, I just don't keep items that require some very special cleaning. And one thing that I do look for when I buy things like shirts and t-shirts and things like that is that they are not very wrinkle prone, because that also makes it a bit less high maintenance. It's just easier to care for those clothes. That's something I appreciate in this busy season of life. And also access high heels. And now, depending on your lifestyle, you might wear more high heels or not, but right now I realized I think I have 1 or 2 pairs of high heels that are actually in storage because I haven't worn them in years, and I only wear them if I go to something like a wedding or some sort of special occasion like that. Those are the kinds of shoes that I just don't buy anymore. I don't even look at high heels anymore, because I just know I'm not going to wear them. Like, if it's uncomfortable, if it's too high, if it's not something that I can literally run after my toddler in, then I just don't need that. So that's something I know I would regret. And so many of them are so cute. Like, if you see high heels, they look amazing, they look really lovely, but it's just not for me or my lifestyle right now. Let me know what clothes you have bought that you regretted later. I think that would be nice to kind of learn from each other, but I hope this was helpful. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in my next one.